So we had our 10-year anniversary for CLT in October.
Yeah.
And it also coincided with the 100-year anniversary of the SAT, 1926 to 2026. So we thought in good fashion we'd throw them a retirement party. And I said, we'll take it from here.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Memoria Press.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud, and I am here today with Paul Schaefer, Tanya Charlton, and our guest, Mr. Jeremy Tate. Jeremy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jessica. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Jeremy, you're the founder of the Classical Learning Test.
Yes.
And father of 6 beautiful children, I just learned.
Hence the bags under the eyes.
Yeah. Well, it's a privilege and an exhausting one.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure. Right. And you're here on campus this week for our conference, and we appreciate you making time for us.
It's wonderful to be here. Huge fan of Memoria Press. I'm a huge fan of Martin Cawthorn in particular, who's just a giant in this movement.
Oh, gosh. He would love to hear that, and we will pass that along. That's wonderful. Well, Jeremy, thank you for making time.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about all that you've accomplished through the CLT. We usually go around and say what we're reading. So I'll go last with you so that you can think about it for a second. Tanya, you know.
Pretend I'm reading something meaningful.
Yeah, that's right. Just make something up.
So I'm reading something light because I don't have any time to read this week. And but last night I actually finished. I think I've read a book while I was here in the half an hour that I give myself every morning when I wake up. And I read that Agatha Christie writing as somebody else. And it was interesting and a depressing ending, but I am glad I read it. But during the conference, this young woman who goes to the University of Athens was at our conference, and she brought me this book called A Natural History of Dragons. And she's a huge fan of our podcast. And I said, well, if you are a fan of the podcast, then you know that I don't really read fantasy. And she said, no, but I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to enjoy it because of the prose. And she said it reminded her of Emma M. Lyon.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I told her I would give it a shot. So I'd like to thank Audrey for the book, and I will let everyone know what I think.
Fantastic. Okay. Paul?
We've recorded, this is our 3rd episode this week, so I haven't read anything beyond the last thing I read. But I was recommended, Fleur last night recommended The Let by Charlotte Bronte.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yes.
And so I immediately threw that in my Amazon cart because it sounded fascinating to me. But so that's going to be on my list. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I think the next thing I have to read is Great Divorce for Margin Notes.
Right.
So that's going to be this weekend's project, I think.
But it's you'll go fast.
Oh yeah, and
That's
I've read it before, and I remember it being enjoyable.
Okay.
But that'll be the next one I read.
Nice. I'm about halfway through a book I've talked about before that it's fine. I'll finish it. It's not my favorite. The new Elizabeth Strout book, The Things We Never Say. A listener I appreciate corrected me because last week on the podcast, I said she won a Pulitzer for this because on the front of my book, it says winner of the Pulitzer Prize. But someone commented on YouTube and said, you were wrong. And I actually appreciate that because I had to go to her website and it's that she won the prize for another book. So anyway, that was a little confusing.
She is the winner of the Pulitzer.
The one. Yeah. So then anyways, it was a whole thing.
Like, wow, that was a fast award because this book just came out.
You're right. So anyway, editorial note, I was wrong. Anyway, Jeremy, how about you?
Yes, I'm rereading Brothers K. First read it 25 years ago, kind of toggling between Audible and the actual physical book, which is great because I like those voices. It helps me a lot. And then also reading a book called The Body Teaches the Soul, Justin Early, a new book about how basically our physical body and our habits really kind of drive sanctification. It's been a really powerful read. Yep.
I bet. And pairing those two together.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's great.
Cool.
Everything from sleep to fasting and feasting and kind of these rhythms of life that we often don't give enough thought to. It's been really good.
Fascinating. I bet it's a good one. Well, today, I hope we learn a lot more about the Classical Learning Test.
Thank you.
And I'd love to hear everything from how it's grown to the students it reaches. But before we get to that, I think the first thing I want to know is, how did it start? Was it one moment that sparked it, or did you see the same gap happening over and over, and then you finally decided, I have to fix this.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. It's a story I love to tell, only too much. The way my wife remembers it, I don't remember it exactly like this. She said, I started screaming in the shower and she said, hey man, what's the matter? And I said, you could change, education with a test, and it wasn't really my background. I ran a small kind of SAT, ACT prep company, and I was seeing, and I transitioned into a Catholic school in 2014. And I was really surprised when I got there, essentially the influence of the College Board as an organization. Mm-hmm. And one of the first ways this showed up, we had this really lovely sister. This is a school run by the National Dominicans. And this one sister, Sister Bridget Mary, she would read a book a night, they would say. She could read 100 pages an hour. And she was introducing 2 new electives. One was in the Foundations of Western Philosophy, and one was in Christian Apologetics. And I was, as a recent seminary graduate, I was part of talking with her about kind of the course sequence and the ideas behind it. And then registration time came in the spring and hardly any students signed up. And I was the college counselor as well, so kind of wearing multiple hats and talking to students like, why didn't you want to take philosophy? Like, these are the big questions. What is happiness? What is a good life? And the main response was, it's not any AP points for why they didn't take philosophy or Christian apologetics. And I was like, that's so weird. Like, and I didn't do well in high school. Like, my education came in a tent in Alaska in 2002, which is a different story. But like, I graduated high school with a 2.9. It was like every minute of school was pretty painful for me. But like, with my conversion, I discovered the great tradition. And so the fact that these students wouldn't take the most important courses because of the influence of a testing organization in New York City, it's like, what? And so it was the beginning of kind of thinking through the influence of the College Board in American education. And then really, I thought I had an idea that wasn't CLT. So essentially, the Common Core, the SAT and ACT aligned with the Common Core in 2015. The school I was at and a lot of the families I was working with were very upset about this alignment. They said, our school rejected Common Core. Now the only 2 college entrance exams are Common Core aligned. Where's our test? Yeah. And I didn't like these tests anyway. And so I thought, well, everybody's asking for it. Of course, somebody's making the new test. And I thought, well, I'll create an online prep course and be kind of first to market on the internet for prep for the new exam. And whoever makes exams, they're doing that. So I'm up all hours of the night researching who's making the new test. And I find that really no one's doing it. And when I finally find people doing it, I could see they didn't know, they knew even less than I did, which wasn't much. Yeah. And so I was in this unique position where I was a college counselor, knew a lot of people in admissions. So I just started calling folks at Hillsdale and Thomas Aquinas College and Christendom and saying, hey, SAT and ACT have made this move. What if there was an admissions test that actually kind of reflected a TAC or Hillsdale education? Like, would that matter to you? And they said, that'd be amazing. But it's never existed. So that was kind of the beginning impulse of like, hey, this kind of needs to be done. So.
Fascinating. So from your experience, it seems like you didn't think that standardized tests should disappear. They should just change.
That's right. I mean, we would talk in the school about not letting the test shape what we do, both AP and PSAT and stuff. And I remember thinking at some point, well, what if you can't fix that? But like maybe the thing you could fix is the test itself. If the test is going to inevitably have some influence on kind of driving and shaping curriculum, then maybe you just make the test really good, and that dynamic wouldn't be, quite so bad. And I think when most people think about the influence of the SAT and ACT, since like if we imagine this hypothetical situation where everyone always knew that, all right, on the SAT or ACT, like that's where you're going to have to showcase your ability to grapple with, Homer or Aristotle or Dante or Boethius, like you're going to see these texts from the great tradition. Like how would that have made American education different? I think if that would have been the case, it wouldn't just be education. It'd be, I think American culture would be different, So we really view it as this lever where if you can change this kind of one line of code, you have all of these downstream, impacts with that as well.
Which is interesting because I'm sure critics of standardized tests will say, well, I don't want you to teach to the test alone. But from your vantage point, if we taught to your test, that would actually be enriching to students is what I'm hearing. Yeah,
totally. That's the hope. Okay. And early on, people, even in this movement, very much in the movement, were very, there were a lot of enthusiasts, but a lot of naysayers as well. And they were like, don't you know that, multiple choice standardized testing is like industrial revolution and where everything went wrong with education. And we're like, well, yeah, but we also know the College Board is the single most influential organization in American education. It's shaping the hearts and minds of the next generation in a really toxic way. They're doing kind of deformation, and we think they need a competitor to make them a little less crazy that would, push things back, at least in kind of a normie, direction.
Interesting. But one of the things that is different about your test is you go all the way down to 3rd grade. So what's the vision there?
We do now. Well, it's funny. I always promised we would never, ever do that. And we, for years, folks would say, I like the CLT idea, but our parents are going to lose their mind if we get away from College Board and national merit and all of this. And so they said, could you do lower grade? Nobody cares if we use Iowa or Terra Nova or whatever. And so we said, no, that's not the lever that we think has the kind of impact we want. And then fast forward to kind of COVID, this frantic head of school in Texas at a small Catholic school, she's calling and she says she wants me to get on with her and she wants me to see something with my own eyes. So I'm like, all right. So we get on this Zoom meeting. She does a screen share. She takes me to the website for NWEA maps. And they're explaining how to help students as young as kindergartners become allies. And including, I'm not making this up, including the sing-along, the hips on the drag queen go swish, 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 that is the melody to the Wheels on the Bus that they teach students to sing at kindergarten. And so this head of a Catholic school, she says to me, she says, I will happily get fired before I administer any test from this godless company to my students. She says, will you please create something worthy of them? And like after 5 years of saying, we'll never do this on the spot, I said, we'll do it, And the rest of my team's looking at me like, what are we doing? Like, we already said we're not going to do this, like, how are we going to do it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, we'll figure it out, So, but that was actually a really cool process because when we started CLT, it was like, I had an idea and I found some cool people to write, I think, a really good test. But with lower grade, it was trying to find like the best like schools and the best teachers and the best academic deans to say, hey, we don't want to be a self-appointed expert. Like, where do you think students in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade should be in terms of literacy and numeracy and what should they be reading, as well? So we felt like that was very much a collective process to have lower grade assessments that really do kind of reflect this movement. So
I'm curious, you were talking about needing a competitor to the College Board. Do you, and maybe you don't want to share this, but I'm curious if you have data on like how much of the market CLT has been able to take.
Yeah, so we are now number 2 in the state of Florida, which is really big for us. Every other state, we're 3rd. It's SAT, ACT, CLT typically. So 2023, Governor DeSantis got in kind of this public feud with the College Board, very much tied into his bid for the White House, and said, we're going to kick the College Board out of Florida completely, and we're going to bring in somebody else who can do this kind of work. And we're looking around like, we don't know, like who else is there? And so they did it really fast, as Governor DeSantis is known to do. And they brought, suddenly we went from working with Christendom and Benedictine, these great but smaller Christian liberal arts colleges, to you can get, a 96 on the CLT is a full ride to the University of Florida. So that in that year, we went from 25,000 kids taking the CLT to 250,000 in that year.
Wow.
It was absolutely bananas. And since then, the legislation in Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Iowa, Indiana, it's been a lot that have followed suit, Florida as well. So with that, market share overall, maybe about 5%-ish, somewhere around there. It's a little bit tricky because, they don't have lower grade assessments as well.
Right.
And so it doesn't totally pair, but I think probably about 5%.
But that's still, I think if anybody would have thought about this 10 years ago,
right,
they never would have guessed in 10 years that
thank you. It's been a wild story. In a lot of ways, I feel like it's God's providence, something that's kind of happened, to me more than like a smart idea. Like it's always like, how did this happen? It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's what providence brings somebody in at the right time.
Yeah,
that's right. Did the 3rd through 6th grade one was just online, right? And then now you can get a written test.
It's always been both paper for lower grade and for upper grade. It's always been both paper and online. So we never wanted to be the instrument of driving tech into schools.
Right.
And so for that reason, we've always had paper. And a lot of our classical, and it's cool because we also are able to have kind of insight into who's preferring that. And overwhelmingly, the classical schools do prefer paper. And, we're now very much in the public school arena as well, especially in states like Florida, where they prefer
the computer. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So in terms of a practical case for parents who are thinking about the CLT, are there scholarships tied to it for some schools? Or is it widely accepted? Because you mentioned in the beginning, people are a little reticent to say, I don't want to give up a potential benefit by going to another platform.
There is, and even places like Hillsdale, Wyoming Catholic, it's the preferred test as well. And there are some scholarships that are only accessible, through CLT. And then for the public universities that accepted it, we're kind of equal. But there's this really tricky dynamic in that. And that you think about, so SAT launches in 1926, ACT 1959. Think about the way these two companies compete against each other. All right. And typically, I'm usually a big fan of the free market. It's a great thing. Companies typically compete on these two fronts of price and quality to get business. They compete by this competition to be the dumbest test. I mean, that's actually how they compete. And if you think about it.
I know that.
Yeah. I mean, because
you want the most amount of students to get the highest score in order to get the most scholarships.
Yes, exactly. So the easiest test is the way to scholarships and admissions. And so if you look at an ACT from the 1960s, you look at the SAT from 1990, it's really hard. Mm-hmm. Today, no analogies, not one, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The longest reading passage is 120 words. Most are only 25 to 35 words.
Is writing optional now? Isn't writing optional on
right? Yeah, I believe there is an optional writing right now, and so it has been this push towards the bottom though in terms of, and so we're trying to kind of come in and hit the reset button. But that is there's a real tension I think that we experience every day between the mission of CLT and trying to go after market share and dislodge the SAT and ACT because it really is this competition. But they've done this to such a level. We were on campus at an Ivy just a few months ago, and they said, look, half of our students now are applying with over a 1,500 on the SAT. Meaning the tool is not doing what the tool was designed to do, which was differentiate among good students. So that it has kind of reached a level of absurdity where a new player can come in and like hit the reset button kind of and provide something more robust and challenging. And that's already happened. Like Harvard doesn't accept the CLT, MIT doesn't accept the CLT, but a ton of students submit their CLT to these schools because they know their 35 isn't that special anymore, or their 15, 60. And that CLT is just, especially at the top of the bell curve, it differentiates in a much more, I think, powerful way.
Did I recently see that like the ACT was bought by somebody that also owns the SAT?
No, so ETS acquired the ACT a few months ago, and they were acquired a few years ago before that by a venture capital firm as well. So ACT is very much now a nonprofit, but it's I say it's tough days right now for education companies that believe in nothing and are not run well either. So I think it's a slow death, hopefully, for both of them.
But there really are still three individual players: SAT, ACT, and CLT.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, maybe one or two final questions.
Yeah.
I would love to know. So if, say, in 15 years, you get what you want and the CLT is at the top of the standardized test, then what would change in the classroom? How would education change?
Yeah, totally. I think we've seen this play out so many times where this premise of the test, shaping and driving and having this influence on curriculum has been played out. So whenever parents call and they're frustrated that they can't use a calculator on the CLT, we say, call Thomas Aquinas College. It was totally their doing. They were one of the first organizations involved. There was like 5 people who knew about it, and I got connected to Andrew Seeley and Michael Van Ecke at iSeeley at the time. And they were diehard, no calculator. And you think about what happened historically, there's no calculator on the SAT until 1996. And then I even remember a middle school math teacher, Miss Copeland, saying, you can't use a calculator on, in my class, and you can't use one on the SAT. And it was kind of like mic drop, like, all right, conversation over, case closed, And then what happened? SAT said you could, and a whole generation of students becomes dependent on a device, because we forgot that math is supposed to be formative as well.
Sure.
So I think it'll hopefully drive these kinds of things. Part of this is already happening. I mean, we got a year or two ago, some folks sent us pictures of the new ACT prep guide. Not making this up. Edmund Burke and Pope Leo the 13th. And they were like, this is totally CLT's doing. And when I first saw those, I was like, Joe, those are our guys. What are they doing? You know, you can't do that. But then I was like, no, this is good. You know, this is good. Like they're being pushed back, and every industry works like this, you know, but they're being pushed back by a competitor towards offering to not censoring the great Western intellectual tradition and including it a bit more, at least. So that's really the hope. I mean, we the way Soren Schwab, our VP of partnerships, describes testing is that it's kind of this proxy war space for kind of competing visions for education. And what we want to do is we want to champion the kind of education that Memoria Press has been championing for a long, long time, right? Of education as both the cultivation of virtue and then the passing down of this beautiful cultural and intellectual inheritance as well. So that's the big hope.
So it's going to, if it becomes the standard, then classical education becomes the standard.
That's what he's
100%.
That's what he's going
the hope.
for.
Yeah, that's the hope.
So Jeremy, when are you including Latin on the CLT?
That's right. That's right. Well, once we're top dog, we can do whatever. We'll make the whole thing, make the whole thing in Latin. You know.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. That's wonderful.
But it would be a massive win, even just for the works, the canon of Western culture to be taught across the board.
Well, you see this so clearly. I mean, you look back at the old Harvard entrance exam that we have, and it was static for a long time. Students were just doing the same thing. They were translating great passages of Greek and Latin. And what that did is it shaped the education up to Harvard. And then Harvard gets rid of that, at the end of the 19th century and introduces the SAT through the world. It was really developed at Harvard from Carl Burgum. And that reshaped what you needed to be doing to get it, So it really has, but we're very optimistic. I mean, I think there's been this incredible kind of waking up, that's happened with parents, homeschool moms all over the country. And I think there are still very bright days ahead.
I do too. I feel like this past year especially, there's been so much energy at homeschool conventions. And I really do think that that we are seeing a resurgence since COVID. I think COVID was it took people a couple of years to get that energy level back and to realize online isn't the best because we need each other. We need to be in community. I mean, we're maxed out here. We're maxed out here today.
Yeah.
And everybody's excited. They're excited about education and what they're doing. And so I think we're on the way up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say the best argument for classical education is just meeting the students, and it's never, I'm not trying to be mean to public school students. I taught in public schools for years. I went to public school, obviously, but like you meet these young people and like, they're next level incredible. It's kind of like we forgot for a while, like how amazing a 16-year-old can be.
That's right.
That's true.
Well, and one thing I wanted to say when you were talking about just how the test influences schools, right? But also like schools influence each other. And I've seen this in smaller towns where like the K-8 goes classical and all of a sudden the high school in town's going, we are going to have different kinds of students now coming in and we need to up our game, right? And so I think sort of in the movement as a whole, like we're all being able to, we're educating students better, which then does affect everybody else to say, well, then we need to be either to compete, educating them better, or to be ready to accept those students, we need to be able to teach at a higher level. And I know colleges are feeling that when they're getting, if they get an influx of classical students from, a new classical school or something, they start going, we have to teach more rigorous freshman courses,
Yeah.
But what's happening now is they're not. Like when my son went to Bellarmine and I thought, wow, he is so ready for college because he was a totally non-motivated student all through school. And then I realized, it hit me one day. It's not that he's all that. It's that we've dumbed down college now. Because the students aren't ready. So they've, rather than make the students' education better, we are teaching less and less content, less well. And then I got mad because that was $40,000 a year. And I was thinking, he's not getting any more than he got in high school.
Yeah, but if the lower schools get better, Right.
then it forces.
Then it-
well, maybe.
But,
Or
yeah,
either
but you
go
have to have enough of them. You have to have
Right,
enough of
that's
them
right.
that then
That's right.
forces
because
the
now you go to
colleges.
Yeah.
college and you're paying for this education that really your child doesn't need because
Right.
they're already more educated than anybody else.
That's exactly, we did early on CLT, we did colleges wanted to know, they wanted us to do a retention study. How well did CLT test takers do with retention? And we get into it and it wasn't as great as we had hoped. And we get on the phone with these families and it was actually the same story, that it felt super remedial and boring for a lot of the
Oh,
students.
you mean retention, like staying in
college
year over
yes,
year?
Yeah. I mean, really, a lot of these students, it's like going back through.
It's not challenging
Exactly.
anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
But
But
I
thank
mean,
you.
but if the
Thank you
college
for
knows
doing your
that,
part.
if the
That's
college
right.
knows that, then they say, okay, we need to actually increase.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, now we're seeing, Chapel Hill, University of Texas, Ohio State. I mean, there's so many now. University of Florida, Hamilton, launching these new colleges within the university. These colleges of civic and classical education.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of the students coming out of this movement are finding homes now, because really it's what they need to continue challenging, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Jeremy, if people want to learn more about the CLT, are there like deadlines that are, how some SAT, ACT, they work off of seasonal deadlines.
Yeah.
Do people need to be aware of something? I know they can go to your website, but
Yeah.
is there something you would say, hey, notice this if you're planning for next year?
We say a lot, we want to be the Chick-fil-A of standardized testing.
Don't know what that means,
Right?
but tell me
Well,
more.
you
Everybody
probably,
knows Chick-fil-A.
you've probably had this experience, where you go to Chick-fil-A and the line is like half a mile. And you're like, I'm never going to get my food. And then like 3 minutes later,
You've got your food.
you've
That's
got your food and all the right sauces and it's hot and somebody says, my pleasure. And they're delightful. They've kind of mastered customer service and operations. They're really good at it, And so what we really, yes, we want to beat the College Board and ACT in terms of content. But we also want to beat them, like the way that this tradition is passed down is inseparable from the content itself of it. So we really want to win on those fronts. So we really try to give students, families those experiences as well. We offer the CLT way more than SAT and ACTs are offered.
Nice. Okay.
So every month, and students can take the CLT actually from the comfort of home as well. So it's remotely proctored that families really like, and we really wanted to roll that out, especially for rural families and families that otherwise would have to travel a long way to take a test, standardized test like that.
I mean, we see that with AP tests in the
It's
Online
so
Academy.
hard.
It's so
It is
awful
so-
trying to get
everybody
it.
Schools won't let
hates-
them.
that's
A
right.
lot of
Yeah.
schools won't let homeschoolers sit in. It's a whole thing. I feel. Yeah,
You say
it's
College
difficult.
Board and everybody groans.
Yeah, yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have time, but you threw a retirement party for the College Board.
We did. We
to end on a fun note.
Yes,
You
thank
did.
you.
I saw that
Thank
on
you.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Or X. Sorry.
Yeah. So we had our 10-year anniversary for CLT in October.
Yeah.
And it also coincided with the 100-year anniversary of the SAT, 1926 to 2026. So we thought in good fashion, we'd throw them a retirement party. And I said, will take it from here.
That's awesome.
And so everybody, just crushed it. And our ops team is so fun. I mean, they got so into the 1920s attire, and we had a really fun night with that.
That's awesome.
No.
Okay. Well, your website one time so people can.
Yeah, cltexam.com.
CLTexam.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
People can.
This
head
has
there
been
for more.
great. I want to say as well, though, again, I mean, we're very indebted to Memoria Press. Memoria has been dear friends to CLT from day one. And I think conceptually, people like, Paul and Martin, you got what we were trying to do. And at that point, it was just kind of a crazy idea and nothing more. So it's great to be back here today for this conference. And I hear just traveling around, I mean, so many testimonies of families who, they use a bunch of different things and then they discover Memoria Press and they're just locked in, and that's where they're staying. So thanks for the work you're doing here.
Good partners with
Yeah.
you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey,
We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time. Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.